There's so many times in training where you have to live in your head. It is both 100% physical, but 100% mental at the same time. So you have to just contend with that. I don't know that I have any trick to it or there was any lesson learned other than just keep going and put one foot in front of the other. That's about it.
Hi, this is Maximilian Büsser, founder of MB&F. To me, watchmaking is art with a capital A. It is a quest for beauty and humanity where mechanical complexity meets ideas and design, constantly testing the limits of creativity. These kinetic sculptures are always much more than the sum of their parts. Every watch tells its own story of adventurers and dreamers, from the engineers and artists that conceive them to the special individuals who own them. Some of those along the watchmaking journey are rebels and mavericks, and most share a little touch of madness. The MB&F tribe of collectors is full of such individuals. Many have amazing lives and stories to tell, and that is why I decided to start this podcast. Today, I'll be talking with a warrior, someone who spent the best part of a decade in one of the world's most elite military units, the US Navy SEALs. Off the battlefield, his life took a sharp turn when he became a father, launching him on a new mission that took him from Ivy League halls to Silicon Valley. Now, along with some of his former comrades, he has developed a technology that could save lives by preventing American school shootings. Throughout all of these twists and turns, his passion for watches has always burned bright. Welcome, Rob Huberty, to Tales from the Tribe, our MB&F podcast.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to get to talk with you and talk about watches.
Cool. Looking forward. This is going to be a great episode. So normally, Rob, we start with a quick fire round. So let's get straight in. First off, what would you say is your greatest hidden talent?
I think that in my life, I like teaching. So kind of no matter what, when I learn how to do something, I enjoy teaching others how to do it. So right now I'm the COO, I'm operations, I was in the military, but mentoring people and teaching kind of is my passion. And as I learn something new and interesting, I like to teach others and show them the way that I found either failures or successes. So I think it's weird that one of my strongest skills isn't any one particular thing. It's showing others how I got where I am, I suppose.
And is that something you discovered early in life?
I think so. I think that, I was an athlete, I was a wrestler and, I had, success, doing that. And it was always, how do I do this? How can I show others on my team how I learned to do this little trick, this one little thing? When I was in the military, really mentoring others and showing them, I really like to find specifically why this one weapon worked in this certain way. It's odd in the military. People are really particular about how they keep their equipment, their kit. And people learn to sew because they're so obsessed with, I want the pouch exactly this way, just an inch over. And why do I do it? Where do I carry things on it? And showing others to make them better so that, I don't know, it makes everybody better around you. So teaching others and kind of sharing your joy of anything is something that I've always liked. And what I have found to watches is I don't know that I am still in the learning phase, but when you find somebody who's newer to collecting and you tell them about something wonderful that you've seen that you're inspired by, it's kind of joyous to teach others the things that you've learned.
I get it. I get it very much. I probably didn't understand that 30 years ago, but I so understand it now. So you're always at 300 kilometers an hour or 300 miles an hour. If you want to, and if you can find 10 minutes of quiet, what do you do? Where do you go?
So I like just being outside. I find calmness in nature more than anything else. I find a kind of peace. I also live in a city, so it's difficult to do that. But I would say kind of finding that calm in life is really important. I actually meditate. So that's something that's kind of big in my life. I think one of the reasons I like analog watches is that when you look at the time, you can kind of see somebody handcrafted that. And there's kind of a moment of clarity that you can see the beauty the perfection, kind of get lost in that. Even if it's a second at a time, you kind of understand there's something more calming and present at that. So I really just like being outside. I like to go for runs. And in that, there's something when you get into flow state of something that you enjoy. So when I go for a run, getting into that flow state in nature is a lot easier for me than it is kind of doing anything else. A lot of people can do that in different ways, but that flow state and that kind of where time disappears, I get that from being outside on hikes and runs.
Makes sense. This is a tough one. What was your most embarrassing moment?
There's been a lot of them. I think one really neat thing about the military is that it puts people in positions that they would never be in and in charge at a very young age. So a lot of responsibility is given to you in a time in your life when you're probably not as well prepared for that and you get thrown into it and you don't really have a choice. It is really awesome to be in front of a group and you think that you know the answers to everything. And when you share something where you absolutely don't know the answer, you get something wrong and you accuse the group of being wrong. So this is something that I think happens all the time in the military. It's comical. You know, you are standing in front of a whiteboard and you said, I said be here at 10:30. And you said, no, you actually wrote that down wrong, or you put this out wrong, and someone shows that. You yell at the whole group, you chastise everybody, and they're like, hey, you were wrong, and you did this the wrong way. And the number of times that you do that, hopefully it dwindles the more that you're in charge, but certainly early on, you're so convinced that you're right all the time. And being publicly wrong and in front of a group of people happens so frequently that it would be hard to track how many times I've done that and accuse the whole, 20 people of being wrong. Like, you should have done that. I told you to do this. And luckily, in the military, if you find out that you're accusing a whole group of being wrong, they're going to let you know very publicly, and they are not going to let you forget that for a moment. So I would say I have embarrassed myself by putting my foot in my mouth in front of a group and accusing them of being the wrong place, the wrong time. It wasn't all the time, but it was enough to where just like, oh golly, am I a fool? And yes, sometimes you are the fool, and you're put in authority positions, and sometimes you make some mistakes, and I have done that a number of times in my life. And
it's a path to humility.
It absolutely is. At some given point when you're in charge, you're like, maybe I should not be aggressive to the group here, and I should listen before I talk.
Right. Yeah. Which living person do you most admire?
So there's certainly a lot of people. I think in terms of starting a company, the founder of Patagonia, his name is Yvon Chouinard. And he has a very interesting story where I like outdoor stuff. I like adventure. He actually was in the Air Force when he was a young man, and he said that he didn't fit. And he wrote a book about his life called Let My People Surf. Something like that. I might be I've read it a few times, but he founded two companies. One is called Black Diamond that does climbing equipment that he sold early on. It was just like the Chouinard climbing company or something like that, Chouinard Metalworks. He started blacksmithing to learn how to climb in Yosemite Valley. And he built two companies on it. And he didn't really like building companies that were successful, but they turned out that they became successful. And he doesn't like the clothing industry and where that is. And ultimately, he set aside his entire company, and he wants to make sure in perpetuity that it gives a great product to its customers, but also does something for the world. And he basically gave away the profits for the future of the company in a way that's so extreme for conservation and the enjoyment of outdoors that he's pretty incredible and inspiring, and somebody who would give away a fortune because he never valued the money. He only valued the experience. And he's like, I didn't mean to make a product that people really want, that are outside climbing bums and, outdoor adventure people. That there's something about the way that he did his business and the way that he leads his life that I find extremely inspiring.
Yeah. And his biography is a great book. Great book.
He's pretty great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that I could be as forward-leaning and just powerful. He gave away his whole company. That's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing indeed. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I mean, that's changed so many times and it's still changed today. If you ask me, I'm 44 right now, what I want to be when I grow up, it's still something different today. And I still think that there's opportunity to what do I want to be when I grow up? So, I liked sports when I was a kid. I wanted to, play in the NFL, the football, American football. But it turns out that you need to be a monstrously large person to do that. And I'm not. Then I wanted to be an engineer when I was a kid. I liked playing with Legos. I liked kind of building things on my own. And at the same time, I wanted to be Batman. And it turns out I have come to find Batman's not real. And maybe I read too many comic books. I saw too many movies and I saw the heroes that were in them. And I believed what it was that they are. So I think at some point in my life after September 11th, I joined, an organization that I thought was as close to being a superhero as possible. And it turns out like there's absolutely no such thing. It's just, such a far off thing. But when I grow up, I still want to be Batman.
I think I've got a superhero complex. I've had it since I'm a kid also. And it's my triggers are bullies typically. I when I see somebody bullying somebody else, I go ballistic, and clearly that's part of it. So, for over 9 years, you served as a US Navy SEAL, some of the most dangerous places on Earth. Can you maybe share what first led you onto this path? Was it a sudden decision, or something which was a long time coming?
I think it was something that was a long time coming. So when I was younger, I wanted to, I'm very idealistic, right? In the same way that you say that to fight bullies is something that was important to me, to stand up for justice, to stand up for, those who can't represent themselves is something that was very strong and powerful. When I was a kid, I read the book To Kill a Mockingbird. And it was profound. It was about a lawyer, Atticus Finch, and a hero, and it turned into a fantastic movie as well. Both the book and the movie are, both individually iconic, and it's a hero, but it's an everyday hero. Atticus Finch is a fictional character, but it's somebody that you could see in your life of representing other people and standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. So I had that idealism in my head. I was also brought up Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I went to Jesuit high school, and an all boys Jesuit high school. And they teach you to be a man for others. Like there should be selfless sacrifice. And I believe that, and that left a strong imprint in me. And then reading superhero stuff, seeing, these maybe almost ridiculous views of like how you should be yourself that is not real, but having this idealism and watching movies and, reading these stories that really leave an imprint on you. All of that was leading to something. And I was trying to find where my calling was. And I really struggled with it. And when I was in college, there was like a pursuit of who I'm supposed to be. How do I leave my mark on the world? And maybe fortunate or unfortunate, September 11th happened when I was in college, and that really led me to the military itself. So I viewed that, my grandparents fought in World War II. The military was like a big thing that I had seen in my personal family, trying to do something for good for others. And then September 11th happened, and I just viewed it as a calling, and I needed to do something about it.
I think either side of the Atlantic, the army is perceived very differently. How I know in America it's something very strong and to be very proud of. Were your parents very proud? How did they react to that decision?
I think that they were proud. So I did something a little bit different in my path. Is my brother went into the Army. I went into the Navy, and he went as an officer. So he went through college, and there's something called ROTC, and you're a leader. And so the perception of that, first of all, you get paid more. There's a lot of benefits of being an officer. It's considered, an officer and a gentleman. I didn't do that. I enlisted. And so I had gone to college. I had done all of these things. And, my parents said, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to go do these other things. But instead, I chose to enlist. And the reason I did that is going into the SEAL teams is really difficult to become an officer. There's very few opportunities to do that. You have to be absolutely incredible. And I started to go down a path, and they said it was going to take a number of years before they would even let me have the opportunity. And then one of my recruiters who had his master's degree was just like, do you want to be a sniper? I was like, yes. Do you want to kick indoors? Yes. He's like, then you have to enlist. And so I enlisted in the military, and to the chagrin of like my father, he's just like, you're an idiot. Like, you have all the, like, you can go in and get paid more and go do this. Like, why are you doing that? It's like, because I need to go do the deed. I need to go face this. I need to go fight. I need to be on the front lines, and I have to enlist to do that. So yes, there was, after the fact, after I graduated through training, I think that my parents understood, but that was not an easy thing. And I think they thought that I was pretty dumb for doing it. And that, I didn't go do a white collar job. I was actually enrolled in law school right before I was going to go be a lawyer. And in the midst of that, I said, no, I'm going to go enlist in the military, which are absolute far cries from each other. So there was a pride in it, but there was also a fear because I was going in at a time of war. So there are a lot of mixed emotions in it. I think in hindsight, yes, they were very proud, but the initial thing, there was fear and anxiety with it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure about that. So look, I can imagine that the training is grueling. It's incredibly difficult. What was the toughest when you trained for Navy SEALs?
The whole thing is, I mean, so many people tell the story that it's almost like not that compelling to say how hard it was. Suffice to say that it is so hard that there's very few things that I've ever done in my life that live up to expectation. And actually being a SEAL did not live up to expectation. I thought I'd be on secret missions all the time, but you train, there's so much downtime. The amount of times that you're in gunfights is infinitesimal in comparison to the whole thing. Even when you're at war, it's hard to not compare yourself to like World War II. I don't think anything I did compared myself to the Normandy landings or anything like it. It's just not even ballpark close. But there were some days that lived up to it. And every now and again, you have these lucid moments where you're in the back of a helicopter and you get off and bullets start going and you're on night vision. You're like, okay, this is what I thought I was going to do. But more than 99% of the time, it isn't that. Training, though, a lot of that lived up to like how hard was in my head and what I had heard about it. It was actually worse than a lot of the videos and stuff that I had seen. The only thing that I could really say of the training is that at some given point, like your body just is going to break down and you're going to be the thing that you think that you're good at, you're going to be bad at. And I remember one day where like my body just didn't have it. And I was really struggling. And there's these sand berms that they build that are, maybe like 14 feet high. It's just a slope of sand. And we were doing buddy carries. And I was a wrestler. I was strong. I was really good at that stuff. I had lifted weights my whole life. I was stronger than average, I think, in the class. And there was one day I was like trying to do a buddy carry with somebody up the stand, and I was dead last. And when you're dead last at anything, it draws a lot of attention. And so they just destroy you. So you get a lot of extra training from it. And I don't think that there was any quit in my mind, but there was a thing, it was like, my body is breaking here. There's not anything I can do about it. And the number of times that happens is really high. The number of bad days, and you have to just kind of make it through it. And another thing that I noticed is sometimes you do an evolution, and I wasn't really that gifted at any one particular thing. Now, I wasn't the best runner. I wasn't the best swimmer. I was the middle of the pack person in generally everything. And you would go in Hell Week, which is, 5 days, you don't sleep. It's the most intense thing. I don't know that there's physically anything in the entire world that's necessarily more intense unless somebody is actually trying to kill you. And there's scenarios that people go through lives. But like as a training environment, that's as bad as anything in the whole world will ever get. And they would do these events, and like you have to do a timed run in the middle of it. And it's not actually timed. And they do a 2-mile timed run, as soon as you get back, you're like, you didn't do it good enough, do another 2-mile timed run. And the fastest runner in our class, who could run a 4 minute and change mile, quit immediately after, when they realized that, they became 10th place. And that was just too hard to know that they couldn't do it. We had a swimmer who was, I think, swam in college and was some phenomenal swimmer, and a swim during that, they would quit. So sometimes the people who are all American athletes, unbelievably good at something, they would quit at the thing that was their specialty because they were just underperforming. And there's so many times in training where you have to live in your head. It is both 100% physical, but 100% mental at the same time. So you have to just contend with that. And, I don't know that I have any trick to it, or there was any lesson learned other than just keep going and put one foot in front of the other. That's about it. There's so many people who've told, running with boats on heads, that it almost doesn't matter to tell that story again. But I do think it lived up to expectations. It is totally unfair. There's no element of fairness. And you have to be able to cope with the fact that it's totally unfair. And that if your body breaks, it's just bad luck. And for the most part, if you get hurt, they let you have other opportunities. But if you quit, you don't.
So it's a process to weed out a certain amount of people, or it's a process to make you know exactly what you should be doing when you're in the field, or it's both?
It's just weeds you out. It doesn't really teach you anything, I don't think. It just makes sure that you're pretty tough. And, is that the ideal way to train? In hindsight, after the fact, I'm not really sure, but it weeds out so many people who seem really capable, really physical, and I'm sure they could do the job, but it's about a mentality. And so absolutely, it's made to weed people out. I think my class started with 330 people to start. And on graduation day, we probably graduated with like 35 people. But
Wow.
Even less than that, though, were originals who didn't roll in. So it was like, there may have been 18 to 20 of us that started the thing and ended it. The other people got hurt at different phases and came into the class. There's a product at the end, and very competent, tough people.
For sure. Now, so you spent 9 years in the Navy SEALs. Is there anything you would have done differently during those 9 years?
Oh, I mean, there's so many mistakes that I wish I couldn't, I could take back, or whatever it is. And mistakes like in a gunfight or something where you went left, and if you would have went right, something would have been different, right? And I don't think conceptually I would change anything. I mean, it's too hard to say. I met so many amazing people. There are failures that I had of, advancing my career, and mistakes that I made. But I'll take the mistakes. I'll take the failures. I don't know that anything was that I did necessarily, the mentality of the reason why I did it, I would change. The outcomes, though, I mean, I lost friends, and had we done something differently, I think about that kind of stuff. Then there's silly things, like I got in trouble in my career, and we did a Christmas party one year, and I got in trouble because we're in Baghdad. We had alcohol. You are not allowed to have alcohol, and it was Christmas, and they had stood down operations. So we drank, and we got in trouble for it. And, I didn't lie about it. So I went in front of it, and I was actually reduced in rank. So I was in the Navy. I've been meritoriously promoted, and I've also been demoted when I was in the Navy. So, would I have done that differently? Perhaps. But do I think what I did was really wrong? I don't think it was really wrong. But, it was silly. It was a dumb mistake. And I'd like to take dumb mistakes back. But, I had a couple of beers on Christmas or whatever it was, a couple of drinks. And nobody was getting hurt. We weren't going to go on a mission. I don't actually think in hindsight it was that bad. But I didn't follow the rules. So,
yeah, I get it. Was there a meaningful object you kept from your time in active service that you've kept with you?
So there's a bunch. I have something framed in my house. So when you get your trident, so the actual pin that you put on your chest, I've kept my original one that I got pinned with. An admiral pinned you when you get it. That's a very proud moment. And they give you a knife. this is a tradition that they started not terribly long before I was like, I guess earlier on the side, that was 20 some years ago, but they give you a knife with a SEAL who's been killed in action. And so you're supposed to remember them and their career and go study them and kind of live with them in your heart. So I have that framed, and they give it to everybody who's graduating. And what was, as you go throughout your career, you lose some of your friends, and then new guys come into your platoon, and everybody's like, what knife do you have? And mine was James Sue. He was killed in Operation Red Wings, which was kind of a famous thing where like a lot of SEALs got killed. A helicopter got shot down. I was in the Navy when it happened, but I was not through training. By the time I graduated, I got his knife. But you'd see some of your friends that you would lose a friend, and somebody would show up like, whose knife do you have? And they say your friend's name, and you're like, so I have that knife with my first trident framed in my house. But there's certainly other things that I have, but that's something that I keep, and I don't, there's not like a lot of military things in my house, or my kids aren't fully aware of like what I did or where I'm from, but they're like, why do you have a knife on the wall? I'm like, well, that's a special memento.
How old are your kids?
So I have 4. I've got a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, almost 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So 3 girls and a boy. One of the impetus for me to get out of the military is that my wife was pregnant, and I decided that having a family in the military is really difficult, which it is. A lot of people end up divorced, and I wanted to be able to devote the time to my kids and be there for the birthdays, for the holidays, for all those things that you miss in the military. And so when my wife was pregnant, that was the impetus for me to get out. So I have 4 beautiful children.
Was it a difficult decision?
Yes. There's such a camaraderie. There's such a sense of purpose of bigger than self that when you detach from that, to some degree, you feel like you're quitting. But at the same time, I saw, if this will sound weird, but I wanted to do something with a purpose and a mission, and going to war to me, for whatever that was, or those wars were, I'm talking about Iraq and Afghanistan. We were attacked. So we went to Afghanistan, and Iraq was a different reason than initially we went there for, right? Like, and then why are we even here? And then after the fact, how we pulled out, like all that stuff is really hard to contend with. But when you're in it and you're volunteering for it, you see that purpose and you believe that mission. And so you go and you fight. And as the wars die down and you're doing less missions and you're away from your family, it was easier for me to go away, because ironically, I liked fighting. And I think a lot of the people in the special operations communities too, they like to run to the sound of gunfire and feel like you're doing something that matters. And when you're just in garrison, when you're on a base wearing a uniform, preparing for things or doing ceremonies, like I had no respect for that. So as I didn't see an opportunity to deploy as much in a meaningful way, I didn't mind as much from being outside of that. But the loss of purpose when you get out is profound.
And so your next challenge was business school. Was there some decompensation there going from the Navy SEALs to business school?
So in a lot of the business schools in the United States, they admit veterans. So there was a group that I could be with. There was actually 4 SEALs all told between 2 years. So like I would sit next to them in class. And one of them I ended up starting the company with, who I've served with a long time. But all of them, we would commiserate and be like, first of all, a lot of times people joke about like Ivy League MBAs or whatever, like, oh, it was easy. It's a party. But when you don't speak that language at all and you're learning the business vernacular, a new language, the same way that if somebody were to come in the military and hear our acronyms, it doesn't make any sense. And when you come in and you're hearing, FIFO, LIFO, like whatever those things are, but like, hey, what's the weighted average cost of capital of WACC? You're like, what does that mean? And you're trying to do finance, and Wharton is known to be a finance school, and I'm learning Excel spreadsheets. It was very difficult for me. And an MBA, a lot of people, it's so stupid easy. I didn't even study. And I think a lot of them lie about it. They study hard and you go through it. And first it was overwhelming. And I would say that, I was spending 60 hours a week studying and learning a new language. I was trying really hard. And I saw a loss of purpose, and I just saw a different selfishness. And maybe it's not, it's just the reality. If somebody's going to go get an Ivy League school, they're going to go make a lot of money. And it feels selfish. And when you're around people who would die for you and would die for a cause bigger than themselves, I'm not compatible with this. The beauty about these schools is they admit really amazing people. So the selfishness isn't, it's certainly not everybody. You have just extraordinary people that you're around. But there was a loss of purpose, and there was a loss of desire. Like I didn't even know what I liked. So you're going through school like, hey, you have 2 years to figure out what your next mission is, your next job is. So it's a great opportunity to try that and to talk to people. But as you sat there and you were going a million miles an hour to something we just sit in a classroom all day, it was a hard transition for me. It was a perfect transition because you were able to commiserate and talk to people, and you'd go get a beer at the end of the day and be like, do you understand this? Like, no, this is crazy. It's like, are you just staring at numbers? Like, do you realize that, somebody who's really good at Excel doesn't ever use a mouse. They only use their keyboard. Like, what are the shortcuts? So like, I don't know, let's go take a class on how to better use Excel. There's just silly things like that as you're going through business school. It's just a learning lesson.
And so did you imagine or have the idea of your company while you were studying, or did that happen afterwards?
So that happened afterwards. So the first thing I did is I took a job at Amazon, because a lot of the things that you go to business school for, there's basically 3 big things that you would do. You go be a consultant, which I'm still not sure what a consultant does. And then I say that jokingly and maybe not jokingly, a management consulting. And then there's investment banking. And I don't know investment bankers do still to this day. And then you can go work in tech. And so tech seemed more interesting to me. But at the same time, I wanted to do something that was more operationally focused. So I worked in a warehouse at Amazon where they ship and pack boxes. And I did that for 2 years, and it didn't really scratch the itch. I learned a lot of amazing things, but again, my purpose in life and the lack of mission, shipping boxes to people doesn't really do a whole lot for me. And, just furthering consumerism wasn't enough. And it was a brutal environment, and it was not for me, and I didn't align with that.
And so your company is called ZeroEyes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So to go back to where I'm from and some of the other things that have happened in my life, I went to a middle school in Connecticut that was called Chalk Hill. It got renamed Sandy Hook Elementary School. So Sandy Hook Elementary School is one of the most noteworthy loss of life school shootings in the United States. And it's still, I think, to me, the most devastating one because it was little kids. And a deranged shooter went and did that. And there's no answer as to why. It's crazy. And I wasn't there when it happened, but that was my hometown. That's where I grew up. And it wasn't the school where the shooting occurred. They bulldozed that school, but it was an identical building a few miles away. And these things happen in the United States. They still are very rare, but they happen and they make the news. And, from a non-American view, I mean, it's crazy no matter what it is, but, how the use of guns is something that's different in different countries, obviously. But I lived in one of the towns that were one of the worst ones ever happened. In addition to that, when I went to college, I went to the University of Arizona. That's a big state school. The Columbine shooting, which is like the first big shooting that everybody still hears about and knows about. That happened when I graduated high school. And when I started college, Colorado and Arizona are close enough to where a lot of the kids in the Columbine school who went to Columbine High School went to my college. And so I would hear stories. They still hadn't processed that. They still had, post-traumatic stress from that. They didn't know why. You go to parties and you hear these stories. So that, both of those were like kernels of like, why am I going to do the next thing? In addition to that, I got married in a courthouse in Virginia Beach. Actually, yesterday was my courthouse anniversary date. So that had a mass shooting where an employee got angry at somebody for whatever reason. He got fired. I don't remember what it was. I went and shot up the courthouse, and I lived about a quarter mile from that. These are things that are absolutely rare, and they didn't necessarily directly affect me, but it's something that you're just like, somebody should do something about this. And in 2018, we saw another one of these terrible school shootings. Was Parkland, a school in Florida. And we saw videos of the shooter with a gun out. And we said, isn't somebody watching the cameras? And they said, no. And so some of my friends from the SEAL teams, we came together. We said, we should do something about that. We should use AI. This is kind of the right time to do it. Just process that. I've seen in movies where they, identify guns on like cameras, like the Terminator could do that, right? In movies in the 80s. And it doesn't actually exist. So let's make that. So it seems kind of obvious in hindsight. So we started building that really after the Parkland shooting. And I use that as a motivation of like all the things you're like, people say they're going to offer thoughts and prayers on this. I want something that is action. The laws are unlikely to change in the United States on this. So let's do something that's tangible, that matters, that isn't, thoughts and prayers. So we're going to use the existing video cameras. We're going to identify a gun in the image, and we're going to dispatch it. So we have an operations center where we have veterans who watch the alerts. It's not your actual cameras. We take your existing camera feed. We process it frame by frame. Is there a gun in this image? There's human verification. They say, is there a gun? And they send it to the 911 call center so that first responders could know where to be at the right place at the right time with the right equipment. And so that's what we built our company on. I've been doing this for about 8 years now. We've raised venture money. We've raised about $100 million. At this point, we've arrested hundreds of people. We're in all different kind of locations. We're in schools, we're in municipalities, we're in transits, anywhere where there's existing camera infrastructure. We do this and just to make people safer. And that's the entire idea. We're not the end all be all solution. We're one layer that's just taking a look at your video cameras, and then we're going to help the first responders have the right information. That's the entire idea of the company, and that's what we're doing.
And what was the toughest part of building that company?
The enormous amount of failures and the enormous amount of no's that we got were pretty heartbreaking. So again, I needed a purpose and a mission for this. And I would say that we have run out of money a few times early on in the company, and we didn't pay ourselves for the first 2 years. So we were trying to get an investment, so convincing somebody that your idea is good, convincing customers that they should pay you money for it. At first, you kind of have to give it away for free, and then you go test it, and then you see how well it works, and you try to iterate and make it a little bit better every single time. So in the midst of you doing all of these, trying to raise money, trying to make a better product, trying to get customers to buy the product, trying to have a team that could go do this for no money in the beginning, having your idea break in front of you, knowing that's a good idea, then saying, if I had money, I could build a better thing, and trying to convince people, I just don't see your idea. Okay, well, that's frustrating. The number of times that we've said, investors early on, I want to say that we had 400 no's before we had a yes of going to investors, something like that. And then you get friends and family. We had, an Excel spreadsheet of all the people who have told us no. Some of those people have told us yes subsequently. The number of times that, the software didn't work in the way that we did in our testing environment, and the number of times that, something breaks in the middle of it is really high when you're trying to demo, you're trying to build something. There was a time but when we did our first round, I think that we had $6 in our bank account amongst all of us. And we were paying like our engineers out of like credit cards and out of personal loans. And all the hardware that we did was, because we use like NVIDIA graphics cards, and they're not cheap. And you just put it on your credit card, just put more and more. And you're like, is this going to work? And you're levering up and like you're running out of money and we can't pay anybody. And then for whatever reason, you have a good meeting. And so like, I'm going to give you the money that you need. So we've had our back against the wall a number of times in the last 8 years. And every time, things are going really good, COVID hits. Okay, we're selling a product that's supposed to go into schools. Well, no one goes to school anymore. They don't want that product. Or this administration values this. There's pots of money for this, and they are all gone now. Okay, this administration changed, and now there's this money. Now it's gone. So the number of times that we've had to cope with this is really, it's a lot. It's difficult, but it's worthwhile. And at the very least, I have a mission. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to prevent gun violence. I'm trying to save lives. And to wake up every day, and despite all your failures, it makes you want to wake up more and do something that matters.
And I can imagine that your 9 years on the Navy must have helped you to get through that decade.
Absolutely. It's the number of failures that you do, all you have to do is get up one more time. And I think that in a very real way, like SEAL training, that's all it is. Just get up one more time. And it sounds easier to say it aloud than it is in real life. But when you are struck with one of these things, all it is if you get up one more time, then you fall down, you're a winner. If you don't, then you lost. And it's easier to do that. The challenge I'm doing now is less straightforward than that one, though. So in the military, it's really clear what you're supposed to do. So maybe it was physically difficult, but it was really easy to understand. Where right now, it's not easy to understand. Like, how do you make money? What are the things what do you spend money on? What do you choose to do? What do you not? This is actually way harder than what the military was, than being a SEAL. Being an entrepreneur to me is actually much more difficult or murky, or, being a SEAL is difficult, but it was very straightforward.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So I was going to say that what you just said before, is that the most important lesson that you hope to pass on to your children? Basically, you just have to get back up again? Or is there something else which you've understood?
No, I think that's what it is. I think that you have to be okay with your own failure. I think that you have to be okay that it's not going to go the way you think it's going to be. In the midst of this, as we had a startup, one of the early founders shared a story that a guy did a TED talk on. That's a Taoist proverb that really hits home with me. And it's, who knows what's good or bad? And so to tell the story really quickly, many years ago, a guy, a farmer, a poor farmer, has a son, and his son, they get 12 wild horses. And the wild horses, his neighbor comes over. They're very valuable. Having a horse is, if you're a farmer, it's the best thing you can have. His neighbor says, "What great luck you have." He says, "I don't know. Who knows what's good or bad?" Then the next day, his son is trying to tame the wild horses, breaks his leg. "Oh, how terrible. You can't grow your crops anymore." "I don't know. Who knows what's good or bad?" Then the next day, they conscript every able-bodied male, and they skip over his house because he broke his leg. "Oh my God, what great luck you have." "I don't know. Who knows what's good or bad?" And it goes off forever. And so the entire idea that you have to have, it's very difficult to have perspective in the moment. And what you have to do is just get up every single time, be clear-minded. Don't be so devastated by your failures and losses, and be okay that you just do your best. And it sounds so easy, but I don't know that there's anything more to life than that. Be okay that, maybe you're not going to be the best in the world. Maybe you're not going to be this. But if you try and you pursue it and you have a clear mind through it and you get up every time, that's success.
It reminds me of a book I read by Myung-Mi Boon. She's a Harvard professor. It's called Different. And there's one phrase which hit me. She says, the reception you get, and it comes back to your story of your company, the reception you get when you have a great idea which is going to change the world or your world is exactly the same as when you have a really stupid idea which is going to bankrupt you. Meaning, in both ways, people would look at you and go, I don't get it. So is it great or is it completely stupid? And that's something which has accompanied me for the last 20 years. And I can so feel that in your story.
Yeah, it's funny that your watches just have a different. The thing that I love about them is they're a little bit crazy, and which is beautiful, and they're unlike anything else. So I think that they're beautifully finished and they're amazing. They draw this. There's beauty, and you can go take a loop to it, and it's well finished, and it's you can get lost in them. But there's some zaniness that is not going to. It's not going to connect with a lot of people. And it's not supposed to. You don't make that many watches, so you don't have to connect with that many people. But it shows kind of this awe and this inspiring thing. And particularly the horological machines are out there and bonkers. And it doesn't even look like you should be able to wear them. And I think one of the shocking things is when you go put them on, you're like, this actually wears better than I thought. So your brilliant idea hits with some people and absolutely misses with other, like an elegant watch that's this, even though it's made the same way and it's beautiful the same way, it's just not approachable. And I guess that's what I love in life. And that's why I'm so drawn to your brand and the craziness of it that I love.
So you've been a watch collector, a watch lover first, and then a watch collector. Can you maybe take us through that and how it started and how it evolved?
Yeah, I think, I grew up in the 80s and I would get, a swatch for a birthday or something like that. I didn't have like a lot of them. And they were the very colorful, vibrant, like fluorescent type colors that when I was a little kid that I liked. And I always enjoyed them. And somewhere when I was in college, I decided that I wanted to get a nice watch. And I just realized like they were much more expensive than I could afford. I watched James Bond and, that those kind of silly things had an influence on me. And, for birthdays, I would get, a nice Timex one or something like that when I was 16 years old. And somewhere in college, I looked at like used Daytonas. And I realized they were thousands of dollars and I couldn't do that. So I got Fossil watches. And then when I was in the military, my parents, for my graduation, got me an Omega Seamaster. So when I graduated SEAL training, they gifted me an Omega Seamaster. And I was like, I'll never be able to own a Rolex. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'll just never be able to do it. And the military is weird because you go overseas for 6 months at a time and you don't spend any money and you come back and then there's re-enlistment bonuses. So I signed a re-enlistment bonus and I bought a Rolex for a deployment. And the whole time I was overseas, I would read what was happening in Baselworld and all of these different brands. And I was, at first for me, Rolex was the pinnacle. That's the highest watch that possibly exists. And then you just realize there's other things. Oh, there's this other company called Patek Philippe. I'm like, what is that? And like, that's for like kings and queens. And then you just keep learning more. And so I have read about watches and kind of gone in forums for the last 25-ish years, but I could never afford anything. It was just such a outrageous, far off thing. And YouTube started to kind of come up. So I bought a Rolex while I was in the Navy. I wore it every single day. So
So wait, you were in the field with your Rolex?
Which
you didn't wear a digital watch, you didn't wear a G-Shock.
No, so
you had a Rolex.
With the Seamaster, I'd wear a little bit, but the Rolex, I was like, when I buy this, I'm going to wear this like the old school frogmen did. So in the SEAL teams, there's a history of doing that, and then it switched. When I was wearing it, nobody was wearing nice watches. It was really, really odd. You'd see 1 out of 100 people wearing a mechanical watch, let alone a Rolex.
Can I ask which model it was?
So I had the Deep Sea.
Right.
So I got a Submariner, and because all the digital watches I wore were enormous, a Sunto, a Garmin, a G-Shock are all really big, even though they're very lightweight. So that when I got it, it's just like, I thought a Submariner would be bigger. And so I got the bigger thing. And I wore that every day for about 10 years. And I I broke so many things off. I had to get it fixed a bunch, the pip, the bezel, all those things. Like I managed to break it, but like it kept good time the entire time. And now there's such a huge culture of it now that more people wear digital watches at the very least at like home, and people are wearing Rolex and Seikos and whatever. All different, and even different brands that like are new micro brands are certainly much more prevalent today. So I think, ironically, the watch culture has actually grown. So I think in the 60s and 70s, the watch culture was really strong because it was a tool. And then the 80s and 90s, it turned to digital watches. And then, the 2000s, it was some kind of mostly digital watches. And now they still use digital watches. That's still the most used things. But there's an appreciation for a mechanical watch that was not there when I was in.
So were you like the only watch nut in your whole battalion?
No, not the only one, but I would say everybody liked it, and they're like, that's cool. But instead of buying a Harley Davidson or like a really cool gun or something like that, I bought a watch, and they're like, you should have bought a cool motorcycle. Why are you wasting your money on that? They're like, I don't know, man. I think that this is as cool as a Harley Davidson. They're like, well, you're an idiot. Clearly. I did that. I think everybody appreciated it. And there were certainly people, if they got a big check or things went well, guys would buy, the kind of the usual suspects for the military, which is, Omega, Rolex, Panerai, the big masculine dive watch things in the military. People like that. I mean, and always have. But actually wearing it to work, I think, was unique. And then when I went to business school, I actually had a few Rolex watches. Unfortunately, I had to sell some of them. I kept the Deep Sea, but to pay for business school and when you're going in it all the way to debt, when I started to have money again, I was like, I had been watching videos on watches for a long time, and I got back into it. So I think starting this company, working at Amazon where I had a paycheck, I'm going to get back into watches. And that's where, I had never held a Patek Philippe in my hand. I had read about, all these independent brands, and I started to get more and more into it. And I started watching videos. So I watched, Tim Masso, his reviews, Andrew Morgan, I would watch his reviews. And so that's where I got exposed to brands that I didn't know about, like MB&F. And you're just like, that looks so bonkers. That's absolutely never ownable for me. I can never own one of those watches. And given time, I did. And that led me to I think the M.A.D. was the first watch I bought that. And then when that came out, and then I got an LM101, which was the biggest purchase I've really ever made, and the beauty of that. But at this point, I am friends with people in the watch world. I travel and I go places. I've been to Dubai, I've been to Geneva for watch events locally through like WhatsApp groups. I've just gone all the way in on it, and I've met so many interesting people. In the military, at first, I was just like, the people who are really wealthy who own this stuff, I don't know that I would ever be able to see eye to eye with it. And I met a handful of friends here in Philadelphia, and I have just wonderful relationships. And they're like, let's go deeper into this. Let's go to this event. Let's go to this store. Let's go look at it. Because to a large extent, when you go to a watch store, I'm intimidated to even walk in.
Me too. Yeah, I totally understand it. But getting into the watch community is a completely other story.
It's so welcoming. And what's funny about it is I went into it thinking that everybody's going to judge me because I have, really basic Rolex watches. Like, that's not cool. And you just meet different people. And there are all types of people. So that, there certainly are people who are going to judge that. And they're like, you're not sophisticated enough. And perhaps I'm not. That's not what I pride myself on, having the best taste. I have my taste, and that's fine for me. There are things that just strike a chord, though, and you love them, and you put it on your wrist, and there's something about it. And it's weird that the people who like that can identify that. And it doesn't matter if you love something that's cheap or expensive in certain groups. And it is a way for a lot of people when they're older and they struggle to make friends. It is a way to engage on something. And I think anything that you collect, any culture you get into that you dive in deep and you have an appreciation, you at least can have that common ground. What you realize you like something else, as you said, or you're a petrol head. Like, it turns out that people who like watches like cars a lot. You go to these dinners. Oh, do you like this? And you just go down all these different directions that I had taken a perspective on it that I was never going to see eye to eye with. These are rich people who value something that I don't. And that you realize that, no, I like the same things. I'm not, we can meet on this, and perhaps I'm not going to have this outrageous collection that this person has. And maybe somebody views me in the same way. And I've just met so many interesting people. I met people who are really like the tool watches, and I love that. And I go hang out with people who like, Seikos and G-Shocks and whatever it is. And that I love them too. And then I go, I like Rolexes, and you go to that, and that's its own world. And then you go to MB&F, and that is crazy bonkers and super inviting. And the tribe is so interesting, and the thing that are people into it, that it has been a profound experience for me. To see the people who are into it, to get invited. I went to Geneva last year, 2 years ago, and I went and saw the Madhouse, and like where my watch was made. And
did you meet the watchmaker who assembled it?
Unfortunately, she was not there that day.
Oh, okay. But we'll have to organize that. Okay.
Right. But I got to meet everybody else, and it seems like more romantic than even I at first thought when you actually go see it made. Like, it's such a profound thing. And instead of like a commodity or something like that, which I think a lot of the people view it in that world, the art of it, the background of like the people who do it, the community who cares, the people who value it. It's not the money that it's on it. There's something a lot bigger. It's the community. It's the connection. And I don't know that you could really fully appreciate a brand like yours without seeing that. But when you see that, like, you care about giving credit to everybody, that you care about including everybody, that they're all proponents of the brand, and that they like watches. They don't just like the thing they sell. They like all watches. And that that's really unique, as opposed to, a corporate brand's never going to say, one of these big watch brands is, and I enjoy them, aren't going to be like, I really like this one. They're doing this well. I don't like that so much. I wish this was better. This is a flaw that we have that we're working on. And they'll tell you all that. And it just gives it so much more credit. And the people that you've worked with, which is like the legends of the industry and where you came from, that you said, I'm going to do it this way. I mean, there's something magical about it. And when you go there and you feel the magic and you have it on your wrist and you carry that with you every day.
Thank you. Actually, you just made you realize something. So one of the things which is very important for me is everybody we hire in the team has to be a very nice person. That seems weird, but I mean, it's something I don't think recruiters think of. But amongst everything we look at is that person a nice person? And there's something else which I just realized, thanks to you, is we actually hire people who love watches, which in itself is one of the biggest issues for me of the watch industry, is that most people working in it don't actually like watches. But the whole MB&F team, or whoever, we keep on talking about it, of all sorts of brands. And as you say, we'll discuss a Unimatic and a G-Shock, and we'll discuss a Beat Haldiman and a Kari Voutilainen, because we love watches. So that's that. Yeah, thank you. I hadn't seen that. We all, us watch lovers, we're a little bit weird. Your kids, your family, your wife, do they get it, or are you just like the weird one?
No, they don't get it. So I've bought my wife watches, and she has, basically one really nice watch, and she'll wear it. And if I take a wrist pick with her, she will begrudgingly allow me to do it at a dinner with her. But she will make fun of me. My kids are very young, so they wear swatches. So they don't dislike it, but they make comments on why daddy is obsessed with watches. I'm like, that's like, why are you watching another video? And they know even some of the voices of like the videos that I watch, or whatever it may be that I'm looking on my phone. I'm like, why are there pictures of watches everywhere? It's basically, my phone is pictures of my kids and watches. So they certainly don't get it. And then like my wife, what do you do?
They usually like the MAD one.
They do.
My kids love my MAD one.
So I will say that my kids, all the MB&F watches, because they're so signature and colorful, they like. If I have, a basic Rolex or a, Omega or a lot of the other brands, they don't care. Every time I wear the LM101, they say something that's everyone's favorite. I have the blue dial one, and I had an orange deluxe strap that I had on it for a while, so it was really colorful. And they are like, that's my favorite one. They don't get it, and I do get ridiculed for it on a daily basis.
Rob, I could go on talking with you for hours, but we're already over an hour. I just have a last question for you, because I love asking that question, especially to somebody like you who's gone through so much. What would you tell your younger self if you were to meet him?
It's tough. I would say that you're good enough. I view myself as a failure, and I have pursued things really, really strongly. And I think that, if I were to see my resume on paper, it looks impressive, but I don't feel that it is. That your best is good enough, and just live for the experience. And your best is good enough, and you're good enough. Because I think the self-talk that I've had to myself my entire life is that you're a failure and that you're going to keep failing, and it's so negative. I can only now understand that it even exists, that I do that to myself. If I could tell my younger self that it's okay and that you're doing your best, that's all I would say.
Rob, that's a wonderful way to finish this episode. I'm honored to have you on the show, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and I couldn't love your watches and your brand and what you share. The joy that you bring me and the people that enter your orbit is incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Rob Huberty and that you had a glimpse at his fascinating journey. We'll soon be back for a conversation with another of our tribe members. If you enjoyed today's episode, remember to subscribe to our podcast so as not to miss our next conversations. Stay curious, keep exploring, and cherish your madness.